Today we're going to talk about rocker arms. Rocker arms. And the different types and the different things you can do as you go up in levels, okay? So the first one we're going to talk about is this. This is your standard stamped steel Chevrolet small block, big block, same thing, stamped rocker arm, okay? These are tried and true, 50, 60 years old, 70 years old. Now, these are about as dime a dozen as you get. Now, these are good for day-to-day driving. They're reliable. Now, these, the way they work is that the rocker arm goes on the stud, like on this head, right? And then you have a ball, a half ball that goes in, and that's what it pivots on. Push rod pushes, rocker arm pushes down, opens the valve, lets the air-fuel ratio in or the exhaust out, tilts back up, and that all rides from the push rod from the cam, okay? Now, this is about as basic as you can get, okay? Comes with a ball, a half ball piece that it pivots on with a nut, with a keeper nut, okay? Now, the problem with these is that if you start working performance of any kind, these flex. These are not stable. These are made, stamped out, a million of them. They put out millions and millions of them, okay? And they're rough. You can see there's little bits and pieces, there's sharp edges. It's all just kind of like whoever was working that day is the one that buffed this all out, okay? So, these are good for what I would say just day-to-day, if it's just a stock replacement engine, you know, just your daily driver, nothing performance, whatever, they're great. They'll last forever. Nothing will ever go wrong. All right? You're not worrying about flex. You're not worried about wearing them out. You're not worrying about heat. You're not worrying about these take a lot of friction of how they're designed, but these will work stock replacements, okay? Now, the next one I want to talk about is I don't have one of those, but back in the day, comp cams came out with a roller tipped version of this, and they still make roller tip versions of these, but comp cam makes a version, and it's, I would say, 30% more stable, stronger, thicker. It doesn't deflect, and plus it has the roller tip on the end of it, which reduces friction, okay, on the valve stem tip, okay? Now, the problem with these is that there's nothing says this one is the same as the next one, the same as nothing. They say they're 1.5s or 1.49s. You know, it's for 1 inch of push that the push rod moves. This is supposed to move 1.5 inches, okay, for 1 inch push. It's a 1.5 rocker, right? Well, there's a lot of variables when you make millions of them, okay? So in the mid 80s, Comp Cam came out with their version of this, but it had a roller tip on the end of it, because you can see, like here, you can see it's got, that's the wear pattern for on the valve, which is really nice. That's a good wear pattern. That means this was riding true, okay? Now, you take that friction away, and you're going to gain power. You take the deflection away where this will move. It will not be perfect, okay? And you build these struts heavier, you put crossbars in, and you put the roller tip on the end of it. You've just reduced friction and reduced flex, okay? As soon as they came out, I bought a pair, and it was noticeably different in my engine just by swapping them out. And it revved better, and it idled smoother. It's taking some of that friction out. Now, the one thing Comp Cam did was the balls that go in here, factory, they're solid. Comp Cam made their own half balls in here that go in here on their, but they have grooves cut in them to get the oil down in that pocket, okay? Reduce friction. That was the key for that in the mid 80s. And now I loved them. And I don't have a set, but someday I'll have a set. I'll find them at a swap meet or whatever, but I'll buy them because I know they work. And I've proven they work. All right. So I'll put a picture right here of what they look like. But you can look them up in any of the books, JEGS or anything. There might be a link down below. I'll put a link down below for all these, or there might be something pop up on the screen. But yeah. Okay. So from that point, then you end up going to roller rockers. Okay. Now, roller rockers are top end. Okay. And this is what a roller rocker looks like. Okay. It has a trunnion here, no friction. It it bolts on the head just like any other rocker arm, right? It bolts in. Push rod comes in here. Roller tip rocker pushes on the tip. But the thing is this, and this is oiled, okay? And it has a squirter. See, it has a squirter right there. The squirts onto it to oil those trunnion bearings, all right? And then you have your roller tip rocker. Now, this is a set of competition engineerings, okay? I don't know if these are available anymore. I got these from a gentleman local that he was selling, and these are off of Big Block. But Big Block, Small Block, they should work, whatever. But these are 1.7s. These are 1.7. There's a marking right there, 1.7, okay? And this is Big Block, all right? Now, you can buy these small block 1.5, 1.6. Here on the LSs, you can go 1.7, 1.8. Okay, so what that means is, again, push rod here in the cup, and this is going to go 1.7 lift instead of 1.1, all right? So big blocks are a little bit bigger, but this, because I ran these back in the day on everything I can afford to put them on, because I just love these competition engineers. I don't know if they're available anymore. They're probably a swap meet item, but they sold them. They were economical, full package, I think. And I know this is back in the day prices, but 20 years ago when I put them on the Big Block race car, it was $199 for a set for 16 of them with polylocks, which we'll get to that, But these are the bee's knees. I love these things. Okay. Now, I haven't tried comp cams versions, but I'm sure all the manufacturers have their own. But these are actually competition engineers, and if I can find them, I'd buy them because they're just. And after 40 years, they're still working. Okay, can't beat that. Not for the price. Now, most generally, all the rest of the rocker arms and everything that we're talking about are going to have a nut, basically a bent nut on the threads of your stud, right? With these, you don't use a nut. You use this. This is a polylock, okay? This is a positive locking nut, polylock, okay? This goes here, like this, all right? All right, now that allows you, because over time, the regular nut for one like this, the regular nut that would go in there, sometimes they wear out and sometimes they back off. This is designed with a locking stud, a locking nut. So you adjust here, up and down to get it right. And then you lock it in. You hold this in place, and then you lock it in with an Allen or a special tool, and that locks it where it won't back out. Because the last thing you want to do is be going down the racetrack, going down the road, and these spin back out and get loose, and then they're flopping around. You don't want that. Okay, you just don't. Okay, so that's what a polylock is for. And I'll get here. See how it's flat, and there's two sides to this. There's a round that goes down, and there's a flat, and that goes up, and that's what this polylock goes onto, just like that. All right, that's how it works. Now, and this is because I put these on because I know they worked. And like I said, you've heard the story. 6 years of beating on a bracket car with a big block in it, and never turned a wrench on it. Besides, once a year, I went through the valves and run the valves just to make sure they were still good. Never had a problem. Never had a problem. Okay. Now, once you get into higher RPMs, then you start talking about harmonics and things flexing. And there ain't nothing in this world that's perfect, okay? But there is one thing you can do if you're going to go to that next level, all right? When it comes to setups like that, and that is going to be these stud girdles, okay? And this is for a small block, and you have to have poly locks for this to go into the stud girdle, and it bolts in and it bolts down, and it basically cinches everything down, because on a valve train, things tend to flex. The more RPM you go, the higher lift you go, the more radical of a cam you go, things start to flex. And something like this will keep everything in place. They make them for pretty much everything. Okay, but this one is a pro model, and it's for a 283 to 400 Chevy. Okay, and small block Chevy, and these are the next level. Okay, above stock. Okay, whenever you're going RPM range, whenever you're doing 65, 7,000 RPMs in a small block, you want to have a set of these, because everything can flex. It's just protection. Okay, and they work. This absolutely works. All right, this is old school technology that is still pertinent today. Okay, it still works. All right. Now, the one thing I don't have, which is the upper level, is a shaft mounted rocker system. That is the top of the line, and what it does is it replaces everything. It replaces everything. It screws into the head. What it does is it screws it. It takes all of this stuff, all of this, and you just take it off and you put it on, and it's a shaft, and everything bolts to it. Okay, it's adjustable. Some of them are, but it is. I'll put a picture of what it looks like, but it is the top of the line, best you can get, most stable valve train. Because these are the guys. This is the stuff that we've all seen. The shows. The high end drag racers. They're going to have a full mounted rocker arm system on their motors. Whatever, doesn't matter whatever it is. If it's Hemi base, if it's big block base, if it's whatever, they're going to have that on the system, because it is the best there is. It is the most reliable, stable valve time, because those guys where we're running 480, 500 lift, maybe 550 lift, we're running roller cam. They're running an inch lift. They're running massive numbers, and that valve train has to be spot on. And so they're not going to be running 8,000 RPMs and 1,500 horsepower with these. They're not. They're not even going to be running with these. They're not. They're going to be running a shaft-mounted rocker system, because it's reliable at that level. Would you like to be part of something special? Uncle Buck's Garage now has memberships, and that's a open opportunity to be behind the scenes, to get information nobody else gets to see, to see things, possibly get to see things before anybody else sees them, things like that. If you would like that opportunity, there's a link down below for the memberships for Uncle Buck's Garage. Please sign up. Okay, but see, the thing is that all of this is about price. Standard, you can find these on every engine in the world. Clean them. Make sure there's no high spots, low spots. Make sure they've worn right. Make sure there's no cracks, no bends. And you can reuse them over and over and over again, just like I did on this engine. Okay. Then you're going to go, if you go like comps, they're going to be a couple of $300 for the roller tipped with the regular, ball cup style. And then these are going to be $300 to $400 for a set, maybe $450, depends on the manufacturer. And then a set of these are going to be a couple $100, And normally when you buy these, the polylocks come along, so you ain't got to worry about the price of the polylocks. But then the shaft mounted systems, they're expensive. They're really, really expensive. Once you're at that level, money becomes, it may still be an issue, but money is like, you have to have it. There's no way around it. You have to do what you have to do to make sure that that valve timing works correctly and there's no issues. Okay. And that's big money. Okay. Those things are big money. And sometimes you might have to get some machining done to the head, but at that point you're like way beyond worrying about, $100 the machine shop to get something milled. You're not worried about it. You're just going to do it. Okay. So I hope this helps. Gives you guys a baseline of what the differences are between all the different rocker arm systems. And it's all about stability at what you're going to use it for. All right. Appreciate all y'all. So if you want to see my best little video ever made, right here. If you want to see the one that they say is best for you, is right there. Y'all be good.